Suzi has emerged as a sought-after speaker and teacher in the field of spiritual psychology. She has a very successful spiritual therapy practice and is the best-selling author of The Motherhood Evolution: How Thriving Mothers Raise Thriving Children. Suzi is a popular speaker and facilitator at the Agape International Spiritual Center, founded by Michael Bernard Beckwith, where she also serves on the board of trustees. We're so happy to welcome you today, Suzi.
Thank you for your warm welcome. I'm so happy to be here. I woke up this morning and my soul, my heart, my spirit was, craving, wanting, needing to go to the beach, to go to the ocean. And lagging just behind my soul was my mind. And it had other plans for me today. It had a list of things for me to do today. So I don't know about you all, but sometimes, in fact, Jamie, when we first got married, asked me once, hey, love, do you ever get to the end of your to-do list? Do to-do lists ever end? So apparently, I don't know about you, and especially us women, I think we have these endless to-do lists. Now I'm grateful and I'm fortunate. I love what I do. So my mind is always filled with ideas and different things that I want to be doing for my clients or different courses I want to be teaching. So when my mind woke up this morning and said it had other plans for me and it really wanted me to stay home, not go to the beach and do some work, there's a little bit of a conflict going on inside because I do love what I want to do, what I do. So I just invite you, I don't know about you guys, but have you ever, maybe you can think of your own life, have you ever had a very clear prompting in your heart, a very clear direction, your heart, your spirit, your soul just knew what it wanted to do, and then boop, 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 along came your mind with maybe a different idea for you. One of my very favorite quotes, sayings, teachings in life says, God has entrusted me with myself. So God has entrusted me, with myself. Greek philosopher Epictetus is responsible for that quote. So I love this quote. God has entrusted me with myself. However, couple of questions arise when we think of this quote, right? First of all, which God are we talking about? Because on any given day, I don't know about you guys again, but for me, I can project many things onto this presence that we call God. And God has entrusted me with myself. Which self am I talking about, right? So this morning, my soul self is very clear, had a very clear direction, very clear calling. I was craving going to the ocean. This other part of myself, my mind self, or sometimes I call it the survival self, the conditioned self. So we have the authentic self, the soul self, the spiritual self, the highest self, our divine self, golden self. And then we can sometimes have the conditioned self, the survival self, the mind self. And Gary Zukov says, we seek to have our mind in service to our soul. And that's what I've learned over trial and error so many times, listening to my mind, overriding my soul. So I think you can imagine where I ended up this morning. We ended up at the beach. We ended up at the ocean because I've learned to follow the call, even when it's inconvenient, even when I don't think I'm going to have enough time to do what I think I need to do, to get done the things that I think I need to get done. What I've learned is that inevitably, the times that I follow my conditioned self, they can turn out fine. But inevitably, a conditioned self, a conditioned response is always somewhat constricted, somewhat lacking to what it could be. And inevitably, when I follow my soul self, I come into some kind of contact with that greater, more expansive self, that greater, more expansive life, that greater, more expansive possibility. I meet God in some way, shape, or form. God meets me in some way, shape, or form. And I find my heart, I find my spirit, I find my soul, and I find my mind in that expansive state of consciousness, that expanded state of awareness. So when I was at the ocean, the beach today, it was awakening within me. I was grateful that I'm learning and have learned to follow this call, this prompting. And what I recognize is that inevitably when I get back home, when I get back, or when you all might follow your soul, and even if there might be a little sandpaper at the beginning, you might not be so certain. By the time you get immersed, get connected to your soul self, you will find that when you move on to your next activity, or what I have found that happens with me when I move into my next activity, is that I end up getting twice as much done in half the amount of time. And I can definitely tell you, and I can speak for my husband, I think he's watching here, I can speak for Jamie, and I can speak for Will. I end up showing up as the individual that I really want to show up as. I show up with more patience. I show up with more joy. I show up more inspired. I show up with more clarity. I show up more centered, more anchored in my highest self, in my truest self, in the woman and the individual that I most want to inhabit. So God has entrusted me with myself. When I ask which self, I listen for what is my soul self prompting me. Now, sometimes that's not so easy to discern, right? Discernment, that quality of discernment is definitely a high spiritual quality. To be able to discern sometimes the different voices within us, the different energies within us, the different places that we may be being pulled within us. There's another saying that I just really love. You probably have heard of this. I believe it's a Sufi saying, and I just love this saying. It says, to he or she who can most perfectly practice inaction, all things are possible. To he or she who can most perfectly practice inaction, all things are possible. So this speaks to when you may be pulled in a few different directions, and you need to discern exactly what is your soul voice, your soul calling, your soul prompting, and what might be the voices of the world, the voices of your conditioned self, those patterns, those habits that we begin to identify ourselves as a smaller self, as a more constricted self, as a more finite self, a more linear self, a smaller self that we've just are habitually moving through our life. When we take that time to truly become still, and sometimes we have to then sift through these layers of discomfort, because sometimes the voice of the mind, the voice of the world, can be so compelling. The voice of the mind can say, you have so much to do. You only have so much time to do it in. You don't have enough time. There aren't enough hours in a day. You don't have enough support. You don't have enough resources. Or the mind perhaps is looking for that sense of value, that sense of validation that these outer tasks can bring us, that good temporary feeling that if we get 3 more things checked off that to-do list, we'll feel better temporarily, as opposed to sifting through those deeper layers, the density of those layers, and moving to that space of true quiet repose, where we do touch the hem of the garment, and we do touch our Creator, and we do hear that still small voice that truly is underneath all of the other voices that can so easily get our attention. And practicing inactivity can allow us to feel the hem of the garment, can allow us to feel into that expansive state of awareness. And it doesn't always have to be going to the beach or the ocean. It can be going into your own backyard and putting your bare feet in the grass, or going to your garden and picking some flowers and having some beautiful flowers in your home, or lighting some candles in some way, shape, or form, to follow the promptings of your inner call and allow that to be more powerful than the voices of the world. I love this word thrive. To me, you've all heard the definition of thrive. We know that thrive means to flourish and to blossom. It's why I used it as the subtitle of my book, Thriving Mothers Raising Thriving Children, because I love the idea that God has entrusted us with ourselves and that we are here to thrive. We are here to blossom. We are here to bloom. We are here to flourish. And there's another definition, a less known definition of the word thrive that I also just really love. It says to thrive is to experience an inner state of well-being in the midst of whatever outer situations and circumstances are going on in your life. So think about this. To experience an inner state of peace, an inner state of well-being, no matter what outer situations and circumstances are going on. So just before we began, when we were all chatting, Janet, I hope it's okay to mention all of you guys, was asking us to hold her in prayer tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, which I will do, and we will all do, I know, because she's laying to rest her granddaughter, right? So she is in the midst of very specific outer circumstances, conditions, that some of which we have no control over. So I like to use this little cord. I call this my golden cord, the golden cord of consciousness, right? So this is what I mean by we are a soul. We are connected to the flow of life. We are golden. We are divine. We are whole. We are perfect. This cord represents who I know us to be. Sometimes life can bring us what life is here to bring us. And so sometimes when we're in the midst of whatever it is that life has to bring us, it can look like a knot. It could look like a knot in consciousness. When I follow my mind, sometimes to the detriment of my soul, I can end up tangling myself up, right? When I follow my mind to the detriment of my soul, I can end up simple. It doesn't have to be huge, big things. It can be, I can end up impatient with Jamie, impatient with Will. I can end up knotting up, tangling up my relationships when this is not what I'm intending to do. That is something that I can bring upon myself, when I simply abort the call of my soul in favor of sometimes that smaller, more mind conditioned self. But sometimes life brings us whatever life is going to bring us. And this is, so sometimes I create my own knots in consciousness, my own tangles. And like with Janet, life brought something into her life, which we could call a tangle, right? But what I love about this golden cord is that even if you are in the midst of a tangle in your life, brought on by yourself or that life has brought to you, and you find yourself in a knot, you find yourself in a tangle, what I want you to see is that the thing about knots that I find so brilliant is that in the center of this knot, if you look through the center of the knot, you will see that there is a space that the light comes through, right? That's how Rumi says that the light is, the wound is where the light comes through, right? And when you untangle this knot by following the promptings of your soul, what you find is that whether you're tangled in the knot or when you untangle the knot, there's nothing else but the presence and the energy of God, of love, of infinite possibilities, of infinite prosperity, infinite potentiality, prosperity, abundance, clarity, guidance, wisdom, inspiration. It's all here. It's just sometimes tangled up. Does that make sense? There's never God over here and a tangle over here. We can feel ourselves separate and we can feel and experience ourselves that way. But in truth and in essence, we can never be. We can feel tangled up. We can feel knotted up. Certainly, I'll speak for myself again. I can feel tangled. I can feel knotted up. Jamie and Will can look at me and definitely say, Mom, you're all tangled up. But what I've come to know is that even in the tangle, God is. I cannot be separate or apart from this loving essence and presence that God is. And so that's why I'm in love with this definition of the word thrive, because the definition of the word thrive says, in the midst of whatever external situations and circumstances you might find yourself in, right in the midst of there is an inner sense of well-being. That inner sense of well-being is possible no matter what the external situations and circumstances are. So when we think of Janet and when we hold her in our hearts and our prayers tomorrow at 1 p.m., and we're not going to wait for that, we're holding her right now in our hearts, in our prayers, in our mind. What we see that is possible for her and for her family is that there is a potentiality for an inner state of well-being in the midst of the outer situations and circumstances. So now I'm going to just invite you to perhaps call forward something in your own life and just maybe call to mind the ways that maybe your soul is calling you, that God presence is calling you. It's entrusting you with your own life. And so your own life is calling you. And maybe call forward any ways, large or small, that sometimes you're getting in your own way. And we're going to all move into a moment of just quiet reflection, introspection. If it feels right to you, maybe just gently close your eyes. If it feels right to you, maybe just gently place your hand on your heart as a way of telling your highest self, your soul self, that you're seeking to connect with the highest part of you. And then just take this time for inaction. He or she who can most perfectly practice inaction. All things are possible. Simply become aware of any ways in your life that your soul is calling you. It's prompting you. It's inviting you. It's seeking to have more space in your life right now, because the soul, the spirit, the heart of us is infinite. So no matter how connected you are with your own spirit, it's the tip of the iceberg as far as what is possible for you to experience while here on earth. There is an infinite presence calling you. There is an infinite potentiality of thriving and blossoming and flourishing while you are here on earth. So let's touch into that. Let's tap into that right now. What is calling you to flourish in a greater way than you've ever flourished before? Blossom more expansively than you've ever blossomed before. And just follow the prompting. Just before we open our eyes, I'm just going to read you this. It's written by my friend and yoga teacher, Lee Simran Brown, and it illustrates this saying that God has entrusted me with myself when she says, conscious breath after conscious breath, intentional practice after practice, we till the field of our consciousness, creating a rich environment for our own growth and unfoldment. Set yourself up for full bloom. So just before we open our eyes, let's each say silently to yourself, I am willing to set myself up for full bloom. I am setting myself up for full bloom. I am willing to bloom today. I am willing to flourish today. I'm willing to thrive today. I give myself permission to thrive today. God has entrusted me with myself, and I am grateful. And so it is. And then whenever you're ready, gently open your eyes. So we're just going to take a moment and move into prayer. So I'm so deeply, deeply grateful to be connected with these kindred spirits, these like-minded hearts and souls. So deeply grateful to be connected, so deeply grateful to recognize and be so immersed in this presence of pure and perfect love that has each one of us, that is surrounding each one of us, embracing each one of us, compelling each one of us to become more and more and more of our true selves. So just grateful for this presence that is always ever beckoning us upward, lifting us, uplifting us into this high and holy vibration of pure and perfect love, true deep compassion, kindness, sensitivity, thoughtfulness, clarity, wisdom, guidance, grace, forgiveness, the giving forth of inspiration, enthusiasm, joy, unabounded, unabashed joy, abundance, prosperity, lavish opulence. These qualities are our true nature. These qualities, the nature of God that is our very life and being. So how deeply grateful I am to know that each and every one of us leaves here more full of the Spirit, blossoming, flourishing, thriving in God, because God has indeed entrusted us with our own precious life. May we see our life more precious today than we have ever seen it before. May we cherish our precious life more than we've ever cherished it before. And I speak this special word of blessing for David, for his yes, for being the center point, the anchored point, the still point that is holding, the container that is holding this spiritual community in his heart. that we see him receiving everything that he needs to continue his unabashed, unbounded yes. And we see for this unity spiritual center, everything that this center needs to continue to flourish, blossom, thrive in an unbounded, unabashed way. Everything that it needs comes to this center easily, gracefully, abundantly. So I'm just deeply grateful to feel into this energy with such gratitude and such appreciation. I release it into the law, and so it is. Amen. Amen.
I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know. You say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. And you say I am held when I am falling short, when I don't belong. Oh, you say I am yours, and I believe, oh, I believe what you say to me. I believe the only thing that matters now is everything you think of me. In you I find my worth, in you I find my identity. Ooh, oh, you say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. And you say I am held when I am falling short, when I don't belong. Oh, you say I am yours, and I believe, oh, I believe what you say to me. I believe. Taking all I have and now I'm laying it at your feet. You have every failure, God. You have every victory. You say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am held when I am falling short, when I don't belong. Oh, you say, you say, you say, and I believe. Oh, I believe what you say to me. I believe, I believe, yes, I